I didn't give up. I made new swatches, mini swatches, like mini tops. Aren't they just adorable? Little mini tops. I think they're so cute. I decided before I do all of these stitches for my own body, let me just do something small. And I'm so glad I did, because I actually made four of them. Good day everyone, my name is Mariette, also known as the Boervrou, and welcome to episode 6 of the Crafty Stitches Podcast. Today is the 7th of March 2022 and I'm coming to you from Gauteng province in South Africa. I have lots and lots to talk about. In my previous recording, I actually forgot to mention who I am and where I'm coming from, so I'm trying to remember all of the things that I want to say before I start the podcast. So I made myself some notes. I wanted to say that this podcast is all about all of the crafts that I'm doing and all of the things that I learn from the projects that I make. I really love sharing my crafty journey with you. You can find me on Ravelry, Facebook and Instagram as the Boervrou, and also on my website boervrou.co.za. All of the things that I talk about will be down below in the show notes, and the podcast will have chapters so that you can easily skip to forward or backwards to any of the things that I've mentioned. So that'll make it a little bit easier to find something that you might be looking for. Let me quickly just tell you what I am wearing. This is the Larimar tee. I'll pop in a picture here of the pattern. So it's got a boat neck construction. So I made this for the fall garment make along last year, and I did talk a lot about this project in episode 1, so you're more than welcome to go check that out, and I'll also link the Ravelry page for this project if you are interested. Let's start with finished objects. Okay, my first finished object is my Emiliana Shawl. I'll put a picture in here of the pattern. Okay, so in my last episode I was at this marker and I have knitted the rest of the green until the end, and then I cast off the shawl. So this shawl is nice and big. I think I will also put a picture in here of where I hold it up. We were actually taking finished object photos yesterday for this project, but I'm going to show you here as well. So this is where I've started doing all of the increases in the purple until we added the green and did the 2 mosaic bands, and then switched over to the green and finished it off. this was one amazing knit. I really enjoyed this project and the process of learning mosaic knitting. I was doing this shawl for the Mosaic Mal 2022. I think the Mal is on until somewhere in April, but I don't think I'm going to cast on another project for this Mal. I really enjoyed this project, and let me share with you how much yarn I used and what I've used. So for this shawl, I was using the L Cottons 4-ply, which is a fingering weight yarn, and I used the colors purple and peacock. I used 112 grams of the purple, and I used 105 grams of the peacock. Let me just think why. Oh, the reason I think why it's a little bit different is that I tried very hard to get the point of my shawl, this point, in the middle of the shawl. So I knitted until I thought that the point is now in the middle of the shawl. Otherwise I would have continued a little bit to try and get the point in the middle. So it's a nice big shawl, and now I would maybe wear it is like this. I really like it looking like that. I'm always looking for something to keep my chest warm. But anyway, so I've used 4mm needles. I did go up a needle size at the mosaic band with 4.5s, but my gauge didn't change that much with the working with 2 colors of yarn. So I actually ripped back and did the mosaic band, this where you work with 2 colors, also with a 4mm needle. Yes, that's basically it. I've learned a lot with this shawl. I'm really looking forward to my next mosaic knitting project. I don't know what it will be, and I'm still wanting to do mosaic crochet. My friend Leanie from Independence Crochet is also doing a project for the Mosaic Mal, and she's doing the Tree of Life blanket by the Crazy Crochet Cat Lady. Did I get that right? Let me check. Yes, the Tree of Life blanket by the Crazy Crochet Cat Lady, and that is also very awesome. I actually heard her when she visited us on the weekend. We went to Little Yarn Croft, but I'll talk more about it in the news section. But I asked her, please just bring the blanket. I want to see it. And it's really beautiful. She chose colors for a sunset behind the tree, and those colors is just awesome. I think that blanket is going to be like a painting. Very, very beautiful. Okay, so that is my shawl. More coffee. Okay, my second finished object is a dishcloth. I know, another dishcloth, but I'm not finished with all of the things that I want to do yet. So to those of you thinking, oh, not another dishcloth, I'm sorry, just bear with me. they might never stop, but I really enjoyed enjoy making them. I did sew in the ends and I blocked it. I just haven't snipped it off yet. So as you can see, this and that is the same. This dishcloth is the same pattern and stitch pattern that I used for the previous one that I made in bamboo, which I shared of in episode 5. But this was made with Moya Shimmer, which is 50% bamboo and 50% cotton. It is a 4-ply yarn. I used a 3.5mm Jois needles for this project. Oh, this colorway is Ophelia. I used my 3.5mm Jois needles for this project, and the cord is, I've written it down, is 14 inches or 35 centimeters for this project, and it worked really well. You can really make this with just straight needles if you like. I just love using the Jois needles with the lace tips. Alright, I love the way they work up. But anyway, so this is the dishcloth. I used 17 grams of yarn for this dishcloth. So if you have 1 ball of Moya Shimmer, you can easily make 2 dishcloths out of that. So that is my second finished object. It is just a very simple dishcloth with a little garter band and some garter stitches on the side to frame it. And there's nothing really to it. I love the colors. Love the way the colors play together, where it's not completely solid, where it's got this little flecks of white. It's really, really pretty to me. I love it. I really love it. Okay, so that is my second finished object. Okay, so let's continue with WAPs. My works in progress. Let's start with my summer crochet top. Okay, so this is the top that I frogged, where the raglan increases was going in ways that it shouldn't. If you watched the previous episode, you would know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you're interested, you can go and have a look and see what it looked like. So I didn't give up. I made new swatches, mini swatches, like mini tops. Aren't they just adorable? Little mini tops. I think they're so cute. I decided before I do all of these stitches for my own body, let me just do something small. And I'm so glad I did, because I actually made four of them. The other one I frogged as well because it was a complete disaster. So these two is made in this more or less in the same manner than the previous one that was skew or not working out correctly. I did increases a little bit different. Here you will see that the shoulders is more straight. I increased in every stitch, but it still didn't really make that much of a difference. And this one, I can't remember exactly what I did. I think I increased in every second round, and it also didn't really make that much of a difference. So then I decided, okay, this is not working. Let me just get my brains together and think a little bit. And then I was thinking that, like when you do a granny square, and you're supposed to turn after every round that you make. Because otherwise your granny square goes wonky. And the reason, as I understand it, the reason for it is because you keep working in one direction, and it is as if the yarn starts to pull the granny square to go wonky. So the only exception for me to that is I don't turn my granny squares if I make every round in a different color. But if I make 2 or 3 rounds in the same color, I always turn after each round, because that keeps it from pulling in one direction. So you would work this way, turn around, work that way, turn around, and it will even out and your square will be square. So I thought by myself, maybe I should turn this top after every round to maybe balance out something, and so that the stitches don't go maybe leaning to one side or something. So I have changed a few things. Right. So firstly, I have changed my beginning of round. For the previous ones, I had it in the middle of the back, and I didn't like the way that it made a stripe. And that's why I was working in one direction, so that I can work it spirally like a sock, so that there is no beginning of round, which didn't work. And then when I made it in the middle of the back on rows, it made a skew line, and I didn't like that as well. So then I remembered in the Tunisian top-down sweater workshop that I attended, Sonja van Wyk said that some people try and hide their beginning of round in the raglan, and I was like, let's try that. So I moved my beginning of round on the increase side here, which will now actually be at the back of the shoulder of my right shoulder. But this is now still just a sample. But anyway, so I changed that, and I decided to turn after every round. So you'll see here that the texture of these pieces is quite different. I don't know how good it will show up on camera, but this one is worked all in the same direction, and this one is turned after every round. And then I also, for the beginning up to here almost, I've increased in every round, in every round. And then I saw, okay, it doesn't seem to go a little bit wonky. Let me try and stop increasing every single row or round, and I started to increase every second round, and it still seems to stay straight where it's supposed to be straight. And then I joined it in the round, like for the body part here, and it really seems to lay flat. So my stitch count is a little bit different here. I actually measured it. On this piece I get 13, no, I'm lying. On this piece I get 12 stitches per 8 centimeters, and on this one I got 13 stitches in 8 centimeters. Now that doesn't sound like much, I mean it's just one stitch, but if you work it out on a circumference of about 104 centimeters, that would mean that the gauge from this to this will give a difference of 8 centimeters of fabric. So it is quite a bit, if it's maybe too small, so it can be 8 centimeters too small or 8 centimeters too big, depending on which one you're using. But just for an example, sometimes it seems to us, oh, one stitch, what is one stitch? but it depends on what you are working. So if you're doing a big garment, one stitch can make quite a big difference. I mean, 8 centimeters also doesn't sound like much, but if you need 8 centimeters more in your top, it can be a problem. But anyway, so I think and hope that this is now going to work for me. So before the next episode, I am going to start this top again for myself using this technique and trying to make it work. Right, so now I've talked about all of the things of this top except for what I'm using. So I am using Moya 100% cotton piccolo in the periwinkle colorway, and I am using a 5mm clover hook. Okay, so that is my one whip. I actually did a lot of frogging these 2 weeks, past 2 weeks. So let me continue with my socks. All right. Okay. So I'm making a pair of socks with the African Expressions Soul yarn, which is 15% kit mohair, 15% mulberry silk, 50% merino wool, and 20% polyamide, which gives you 200 meters on 50 grams. This one also says 100 grams, but it's 50 grams. But anyway, right. So when I was talking about this yarn in one of my episodes, Adela from Yarn Creations Podcast left me a comment and said that she always uses a size smaller needles for these, for this base of yarn, because it seems to stretch a little bit. So I listened and I made a gauge swatch, and I also got the same result, that the 2.5mm needles that I usually use on Magic Loop for socks is making the sock too big. So then I looked through all of the things that I have, and the only thing I could find was 2.3mm DPNs. Now, I'm not a huge fan of DPNs, but I would love to improve my DPN skills, so I decided I'm going to try it, and I started the sock based on my swatch. But what I've learned from this experience is that this sock, when I started it, it was a little bit smaller in circumference than the previous socks that I made, but I've seen from my gauge swatch that the moment when I washed it and everything relaxed, it did grow a little bit. So I decided, I measured, but I must admit, I think my gauge swatch was too short, because I made a gauge swatch of the whole 68 stitches, but I only made a thin gauge swatch, and because of that, my expectation for the growth of the length was not exactly right. But as you can see here, I've taken out the DPNs, I've put it on waste yarn, and I asked my husband to fit it on his foot before I actually blocked it, and it was very, very small, and he said that it's very tight, and I could see that the length is a little bit short. So I said, no, okay, let me just wash it, block it, and see. So I left all of the markers in the sock, and I threw it in the wash, and I left it to dry, and I asked him yesterday, please just put it on again. So now it's grown. The and relaxed. The stitches for the circumference is perfect, but I anticipated it to grow a little bit more in length, which it didn't. It actually just grew in circumference and not really in the length. So I am now going to put my needles back in before the gusset increases, and I'm going to knit that 1 or 1.5, 2 centimeters. I'm not exactly sure. I just did make a note. I'm going to knit that again. Not again. I'm going to add that to the foot length, and then I'm going to do the gusset increases again. And I also decided that in this base, it seems as if the normal slip stitch heel flap that I usually do is a bit short. I don't know why it really looks short to me. So I said, now I think I'm also going to lengthen the heel flap and maybe do 2 more increases on my increases for the gusset, just to make this a little bit more roomy, because I can't get it to the right exact place that it needs to fit, but it also seems to me as if there's not enough room here for his instep. So yeah, the joys of using a different fiber content, but that is how we improve our skills. So I'm not too bothered about it. I mean, it is a little bit of knitting, but you know, you can always rip back. Nothing happened to the yarn, still perfectly usable. And in this way, I learn lots of new things. So that is what I will do. So this sock is this big now, and I'm going to rip back up to there, and I will place a progress keeper, and I will start again and keep that as my where I was in the previous episode marker. But yes, that is what I've learned from this sock knitting experience. I do get a little bit of laddering, but it seems the moment I stop pulling on the yarn, the laddering stops. And I said to Leanie when we were driving the other day that I think it is because the moment I pull on the yarn in between the needles, I maybe pull a stitch a little bit open, more open than it was, because if I knit on magic loop, I don't ever pull on the yarn. I just knit and keep the same tension. And I think the moment I pull on the yarn, I pull the stitches. But anyway. The two of us is knitting socks now together, so that's quite nice. Talking things through and thinking about things together makes quite a huge difference. So that is my socks. Well, it's not my socks, my husband's socks. He also did mention that the fabric is quite nice and warm, so it will be very nice winter socks. So that is the whole story of the socks. And I'm keeping the yarn in my 50-gram yarn cake cozy, also made with Moya 100% cotton yarn. I have lots of whips. I've started a new project. I'm laughing now. I'm thinking of Leanie's face when I told her about my new project. I said to her, I've got a big problem because I developed blanket fever. Yeah, I started a blanket. I just want to do all the blankets. I think the biggest problem is I've watched Alexandra from the Fiberbound podcast, and she knitted a blanket, and I was like, oh, so beautiful. but I'm not into blanket knitting yet. I started a crochet blanket. I saw the other blanket from Alexandra from Fiberbound. She actually held a sock weight undyed yarn together with her Advent minis to knit this blanket. And I have had this idea in my head for a long time that I want to use the white yarn with something else to make like a mold effect type of blanket or whatever. And this is now all just made with acrylic yarns that I have here. I have lots and lots of cones of acrylic yarns. And I decided to use this unknown white, there's no more label. Anyway, so I decided to take this white. It is quite thin. I would say it's almost a little bit thinner than a normal 4-ply, but I don't know, some of the cones looks like they are this thin. Anyway, so it's a thin, like a 4-ply type of yarn. And I am just holding it double with colored cones. Like this is Mirage, I think it's pronounced correctly, Mirage 4-ply and Fiesta 4-plies, and like this green is leftovers from a king size granny square blanket from my mum, and you know, like leftover cones of yarn that I inherited basically from my mother-in-law. So yes, I'm doing that. And I decided to be different because I always like to be different apparently. And I figured out how to do the waffle stitch from corner to corner. But just look at this squishiness. Oh, it is just, yeah, I'm a little bit in love. So I decided to do 2 colored stripes with the white in all the different colors. Okay, small interruption. Let's just recap quickly. I was talking about my corner to corner waffle stitch blanket, and I was saying that I'm working on a new technique where I crochet with the ends and over the ends. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm also working on maybe doing a tutorial for what I mean and how to do it, as all of these ends except for those 2 at the beginning is actually already weaved into the blanket. So yes, that is my corner to corner waffle stitch blanket, and I really have to be careful to not just work on this. It's calling my name every day. Okay, so that is the blanket. I don't know if I said, but I'm doing it with a 5.5mm crochet hook. Okay, so the next project that is still not a work in progress really yet, but is coming in future. I'd rather say it's a future project. I bought the Beekeeper Cardigan pattern from Marie Green. I'll put a picture in here of the photos. I actually saw it when Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady was making one, and I really fell in love with it, and I want to make my own. So I bought the pattern and I decided to make a few swatches and see what I really like. So I made 3 swatches, and for this pattern you actually swatch flat and in the round because it is worked, it's a cardigan, it's worked from side to side, and the sleeves is worked in the round. But anyway, so I swatched in cotton yarn, and this is the swatch that I made. This is Let me just grab the tag. Do I have the tag? No, I've got the ball. Better. So it is the Moya 100% cotton, double knit, and this is in the Sangria colorway. Purple, my color. Everybody would know that by now. Anyway, so that is my the swatch that I made in the cotton yarn. And then I decided, let's expand the horizons, and I used a combination of these two, the African Expressions Soul Fingering Sock Weight and the African Expressions Hope, and I held them together and I made this swatch. No, it's like that. And that is also just, oh, the softness is amazing. And this has got more of a bounce, I would say. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It bounces back a little bit. And I really like that. The more I look at it, the more I like it actually. But anyway, so I've swatched this combination. And then I also made this combination. This is a bamboo yarn. It is Eco Bamboo from Nurturing Fibers, which is also a 4-ply, and I paired it up with a set of samples. Actually, I bought this sample set quite a while ago, and it is 72% Super Kid Mohair and 28% silk. So I just used it undyed with this yarn, and this, I cannot explain the softness of this. When I gave these 3 swatches to Leanie and she touched this and she's like, no, I like that. I also like this a lot, but it doesn't have that bounce. Not that I'm worried about it. For now, I think I might stick with this combination. But I've got 2 Mohair lap blankets in the house, and they are very scratchy. And I really don't know why. I've washed it with Woolite before, and keeps having like a scratch factor. Now I don't know if it's only mohair or blended with something that's maybe scratchy, but anyway. So I also told Leanie I'm not exactly sure if this is what I'm going for, because of the problem that I have, like socks. Putting things on my feet doesn't really bother, but the sock wool, like the Naku sock wools that I've used for the previous socks, is fine on my feet, but I cannot wear it on my arms. It is scratchy to me. So I decided I'm gonna test this theory, and I made this wrist warmer. Let me put it on. In the same blend with the same yarn, but I didn't have enough of the Eco Bamboo to do the whole thing, so I just use Venice Colors bamboo held together with the mohair, and I've done this. And when I at first put it on, that's why the ball is still here. When at first I put it on, I thought, oosh, this is scratchy, it's not gonna work. And then I said to myself, listen, just relax. I've heard so many times that washing softens up lots of things. And when I was washing the socks, I still had the water, and I decided, let me just soak this and dry it. And it's amazing to me, when you wet the bamboo, it becomes like a board, stiff and yucky. But the moment it dries, it is this, again, this soft, beautiful feeling of yarn. So I've had this on for 2 or 3 hours this morning, and it doesn't seem to have a scratch effect and make me feel scratchy. But if I take this unwashed piece and I tuck it in here, it scratches me. So I don't know, maybe I'm just sensitive. But I think that this might work for this cardigan with the mohair. But the reason why I did not bind it off, or actually weave in the ends, is because I did a stretchy bind off and it's too big. So I'm going to undo the bind off, and I'm going to redo it with the Russian bind off, which I did for my scrappy wrist warmers. You'll have to check the next Sunday, Scrappy Sunday chat to see that. But anyway, and that works very nicely. So I'm going to just redo this bind off, and I think I'm just going to keep this wrist warmer to wear in future, because this is really, really lovely and soft. So I must now make a decision sometime in the very near future on what colorway I would like to use for this cardigan, and if I'm going to stick to this combination or this combination. But I think this is going to win. We shall see very soon, I think. Okay, let me see. Okay. I have talked and talked so much today. Let's go into news, and then I will finish off this episode with a comment question. So let's move on to news. So when Leanie and I got together for the Sunday live, Scrappy Sunday live chat, we actually did a little yarn swap. She suggested in one of the episodes, when I was rambling on about how many sock yarn I have in the same colorway, she said, well, why don't you do a yarn swap? And then we decided to do a yarn swap, and she got one of the balls of Nakuboho yarn, and she swapped me with a sock set from Esterisa Yarn Creations. And this colors is exactly me. It's got blues and purple and speckles and solids. Oh my goodness. It is really, really beautiful. I hope, really, really hope that you can see all of the colors of this sock set. It is divine. Just look at that. Oh my goodness. So this is Esterisa Yarn Creations sock set Clio. It's a Clio base, which is 75% merino, superwash merino, and 25% nylon 3-ply sock fingering weight. And the set is approximately 110 grams, which is approximately 385 grams. But these colors has, oh my word, I just love it, and it's so squishy. I love it. It is beautiful. Really, really beautiful. I cannot wait to work with it. And I've been laughing because neither of us have a Swift yet. And when I was going to Leanie for this Scrappy Sunday live, she phoned me and asked me if I was already on my way. Can't I bring my Swift? And I'm like,
I am bringing my Swift, which is my husband, but I will be your Swift. Because I usually get my husband to stand, and then I just use the yarn winder and he holds the skein open and I just wind it up. But anyway, so she wanted to help me to wind up the yarn, but I have this problem that I have a dachshund mix. Her name is Fluffy, and she's got a very, very bad allergic reaction to any funny smells. So when I buy yarn, I come home and I untwist the skeins and I wash it immediately, because it is the funniest thing. You just come in with something and she starts scratching herself. It's terrible. She just scratches and scratches, and yeah, eventually it is raw and full of blood, and yeah, so we don't go that way. I've learned in the past that it is smells that affect her, and it was the funniest thing when we came back from the pop-up shop. We were unpacking all of the stuff and the dog came and she smelled the yarn. And I was like telling the dog, don't smell the yarn, just go. And she was going, sitting underneath the table, and she started scratching, and poor Leanie took all her stuff and put it in a bag. I'm like, no, relax. As long as the smells go away, it's fine. I must just not sit and work with the stuff. So I always, nowadays, after I know this, it seems that it's especially, I don't know, some smells. So if I get a skein of yarn, I come home, I untwist it, wash it with soap that I know the smells does not affect her, and I let them dry, and so then they have to dry before I can wind it up and work with it. So it takes me like 2 or 3 days in any way before I can do that. But anyway, that is a long different story. So that's this yarn. That we did a little swap with. So we got together and we went to the Knotty Habit pop-up shop, and I bought a few things as well. I bought the extra skein of yarn from Lauren's shop to complete the socks that I started for my husband, and I bought some progress keepers. From Pincushion Crafts. I will link it down below for you as well. And I cannot wait to start using them. After I finish this recording, I am just popping it on every work in progress that I have. So when we got to the pop-up shop, we actually met Lisa from the Volblom podcast. She was there busy shopping in Knotty Habit's little pop-up shop, and it was so lovely meeting her and seeing her straw flower shawl. Oh, that purple has got me just gushing. It's the most beautiful purple, and the shawl is beautiful. I really love it. So you can just pop over and go see that. I will link it down below. So that was very nice. We met her. When we actually arrived, we just met Bev quickly, sort of in the street. She was already on her way leaving, but we actually met, and that was very lovely. We were standing and talking, and eventually Ursula arrived as well, and we met her in real life. It was so nice. It was so lovely for me that she actually brought her cowl with, that she's making. It is the Forever and Ever cowl made with sweet skeins fingering weight yarn and African Expressions Hope that she paired together, and she brought it with and showed us. I thought it was really so thoughtful of you bringing that along. I really enjoyed meeting you and everybody else that we've met. It was really a fun time. We stood around and we spoke to Mincy and talked about what we liked about yarns, what we don't like, and just all of the things. It was so lovely. So from Knotty Habit, I bought this skein of yarn. It did look much more beautiful when I got it, but as I mentioned, I've already washed it and I cannot get it back into a really beautiful skein again. So this is what it looks like. I mean, these colors, just look at that. Isn't that just amazing? And I love the name as well. It's called Just Like That. And you know what? This skein of yarn was hanging there, and just like that, it grabbed my attention. And I was standing with it and I just couldn't put it down. So I decided to buy it. So just like that, it came home with me. So this is on her light fingering weight. It's a superwash, 50% merino, 15% mulberry silk, 15% kid mohair, and 20% polyamide. So I think this will eventually become socks for myself. And when Leanie asked me what I'm going to do with it, and I said socks, Mincy said, just remember to do it on smaller needles. And I'm like, yes, with my 2.3mm DPNs. So yes, I will always keep that in mind and do it with a smaller needle. But this is really beautiful. And then we also got a little pin from Knotty Habit that they gave to the customers for their pop-up shop, which is so thoughtful and so pretty. I really like it. I think it's my first ever pin. Very cool. Okay, so that is my acquisitions basically. I think that is everything. Yes, what else was there? Oh, we spent too much time at the Little Yarn Croft. So after we were talking with everybody and we went and browsed through Little Yarn Croft, the shop itself, and there was 2 workshops going on. One was a ceramic painting type of workshop where I think Lauren's aunt at the workshop presented the workshop where they painted yarn bowls. So that was quite something to have a look at. It looks like a lot of fun. And then inside the shop, Sonja van Wyk from Designs by Sophia had a Tunisian workshop where they work through Beatrix Snyman's book Master Tunisian Crochet, and then they will make blocks and make a blanket at the end of the day. So they were doing that. So it was lovely seeing Sonja again, and I actually saw Jane as well. We were together in the top-down Tunisian sweater workshop from the previous pop-up shop from Knotty Habit. There was this workshop and the 2 of us was in the workshop doing the class. So yes, that was about all that we did there. It was really fun browsing and looking at all of the things and listening to what everybody's making, and lots of fun. I really realized afterwards how much I actually miss the crochet classes that I presented here as well. I miss the interaction of people and helping people with learning new skills and sorting out the crafting problems, and I really miss that. And I'm so glad that we started this podcast, because now we can really build again on our crafting community and chat with people, and just sharing things, and everybody's wisdom coming to you, like how they treat their hand knitted things and the methods that they like to use to knit their socks, things that we didn't actually think about. And that's really lovely. I really, really appreciate every comment and everything that everyone sends my way, in wisdom and things that they've learned, and so that we don't make the same mistakes all over again. Somebody learns something, shares it with somebody else, and then you are prepared and you don't make a pair of socks too big because you didn't know that the yarn's going to grow, that type of thing. So that is really, really lovely for me. I'm really enjoying this crafting community. So let me just sum up what else is happening. Yes. Something else that happened is that the Tunisian simple stitch tutorial went up last week. I'm just making tutorials as I come across things and work on things. I don't really have a specific set plan, but yeah, I'm just taking it slow and go with the flow type of thing with the tutorials, sharing some tips and tricks and that type of thing. So the next thing that will be going up is a tutorial, a pattern and a tutorial for this little dishcloth. I'm working on that at the moment, so you can look out for that. And then I think that is about it. That's all that I have. I talked quite a lot today again. The last thing is I do have a comment question, and my comment question for this episode is, are you a blanket maker? Do you like to work on blankets, whether it's knitted or crochet? And if you do, what is the biggest blanket you ever made? So I'll just very quickly share. I have 3 king size blankets. So I will also put a picture or a little clip or something of this blanket on the bed, because it's, as I said, king size and it's a little bit difficult to show. But I just grabbed it off the bed before I started, and this is a very colorful granny square blanket. I actually started the blanket and it took me on and off about 8 years to finish it. I started it and I crocheted the blocks and I started sewing them together. And I think I had like 6 rows of the length of the king size blanket. And I decided this sewing is not gonna work. And I started to look around and I found out how to do the granny squares with a join as you go method. And I actually unraveled those 6 rows. My mom said I'm crazy. So I unraveled all of them and I decided I'm just gonna join as I go and add another row around every little block. And when I finished the first two rows of blocks, I thought, wait, let me just do a little stripe. So I did 2 rows of blocks and I think 4 colors of stripes, and then the next rows and so forth. Eventually we actually slept under it, and I added the last 2 rows of blocks in the bed. It was a thing of, just give me the blanket, I want to add a block, and giving it back, and crocheting the next block and stealing the blanket of my husband and adding the next block. And then eventually I put the border around. But yes, that was my first big blanket that I made. And with this technique of joining as you go, I actually taught my mom how to do it as well. She was a big crocheter. She didn't do many blankets, I think. She mostly did like doll clothes and small blankets and that type of thing. But she started the other king size blanket, and when she started it, I said, no, don't sew them together. Let me help you and show you how we do this. I still remember my husband taking video footage over my shoulder with my phone and me WhatsApping her all of these things because I couldn't always just get to her. She wasn't living near to me. And I showed her how to do the crochet join as you go. But anyway, so yes, that's the biggest blanket that I've made. And then the other one is the knitted one that I made, the knitted blocks one that I made, and I talked about it I've talked about it in one of my episodes, and I'll just put the number of the episode on the screen if you would like to see. But yes, please leave a comment and let me know what the biggest blanket is that you've ever made. I would love to know. So that is everything that I have for you today. Thank you very much to everybody who is a returning viewer and coming back and sharing your time with me. I really appreciate it, and all of your comments is really, it just warms my heart. It's really lovely to have a community to talk to that understands the language that we speak. I really love that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye.